welcome back to my channel, and today we're doing my worst books of 2023. So 2023 was a really interesting year for me because I wouldn't even say that my reading year was bad. I would just say that my reading year wasn't good. I have so many 3-star reads, a lot of 4-star reads, which helped make the year feel better, but so many 3-star reads that made making a worst books of the year a really difficult video to compile. I don't have that many books. I only have 5, but these are definitely the worst books I read, confidently. In previous years, I have some 2s, some 2.5s, and I'm not I feel bad saying that they're the worst books, but these I think genuinely were not good books. This year, I've also gotten more into DNFs, so that didn't help me either because some of the books that I finish just to finish because they're horrible, I put them down this year for my own mental health. So we're going to get into the top 5, the worst of the worst, starting with a 2-star read, which I still have with me. I didn't get rid of it yet, but it's Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And this is mostly on this list because it was such a disappointment for me. It's supposed to be this really heartfelt story of a cafe in Tokyo where people are allowed to go back in time. The only catch of going back in time is that they have to come back before their coffee gets cold, essentially. And the way that people describe their feelings reading this book and the emotional damage it does, I just didn't experience that. I was absolutely expecting to devour this book and give it 5 stars. I was not expecting this to appear on my worst books of 2023. I had my post-it notes and my pens at the ready to annotate. I was ready. Unfortunately, I was just really let down by the writing in this one. Kawaguchi definitely dives into how each individual character is feeling and what they're thinking. And despite that, I really don't feel like the depth of these characters' feelings was described. It could be the translation, but I just did not feel like the writing in this was impactful or affected me in the way that it seems to affect so many others. I understand that the stories in this novel were meant to be touching, but I really didn't get a sense of that. What I did absolutely get a sense of is the amount of times the rules of the time travel is discussed in this book. It's constantly referenced. And if this was supposed to mean something symbolically, I really didn't get it. I wanted to be hit in the gut with emotion, but I was just bored instead. Very much one of the most disappointing books I read this year. I'm giving this to my sister. Hopefully my sister loves it a lot more. She really wants to read it. So it's going to a good home. It's the only book on this list that I've kept for that reason, to give it to my sister, and I hope she enjoys it. Everything else from here on out, peace, love, goodbye. The next book, I completely forgot that I read this year. It's Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I thought that I read this so long ago. That's how much I do not care about this book. It's a middle grade story that tells the tale of Sophie Foster, who finds out that she comes from a world of elves. Specifically, she is special because she is also a telepath, so she's able to hear the thoughts of others around her, and when she meets this boy Fitz, she is swept up into this elf land. I'm gonna be honest, I cannot believe people like this book. I'm definitely not the target audience for this book, and plenty of people enjoy this series a lot, so please take this review with a grain of salt. But I had so many issues with this book that made me want to pull each individual one of my eyelashes out of my head, which the character says over 15 times in 400 pages. I think my main issue with this novel is that I am far more of a character-driven reader than I am a plot-driven reader. So if I really despise the character, or there's no purpose to despising the character, I can't like a book. So reading this book, fully annoyed with our main character, I wanted out. The chosen one trope is hammered into you from page 1 in this book. And it's just so we all know that Sophie is so good at everything and has all 5 of these most rare and special talents. And she's just so different from everyone else, but everyone still loves her and appreciates her presence. There was just no stakes, it felt like, in this entire novel. I didn't feel like anything bad was going to happen to Sophie because she was just so special. Every time something bad did happen, or Sophie does something that is very clearly stated to be illegal in both worlds, I knew it was going to work out because she's just so special and everything works out for her. The world building in the story is so incredibly weak. Even the magical school part, which is parts of fantasy books that I often enjoy, was so boring. And that's mostly because Sophie is just better than everyone and spends her whole entire day thinking about how she's better than everyone. I have so many problems with this book, and I I can like honestly rant about it for hours. And even though I completely forgot that I read it this year, now that I'm like rereading my review and being in the moment, I remember the visceral hate I had for this book. Definitely one of the worst middle grade novels I've read in quite a while. And that's why it ended up on this list on the worst books of 2023. Next, we're getting into books I think that are just deserving of 1 star. These ones I think are just bad, and so I don't have as much hate for them because I'm not like disappointed by them. But we'll get into a book that I didn't expect much from, and it still let me down. This is A Knight in Shining Armor by Jude Deveraux. I read this for my bodyguard romance, exploring bodyguard romance, and the problem with exploring bodyguard romance books is that a lot of them are written earlier in time. Like when I was reading this, I knew from the first chapter that I wasn't going to like this. This is an example of a book I definitely should have DNF'd, but for the video, I had already DNF'd another horrible bodyguard romance, so I really didn't want to DNF another one. Our heroine was just completely insufferable from the very first page. Her motivations were just so far from what my brain could possibly comprehend as decision making and actions. I definitely think she was the most frustrating perspective that I read from this entire year. I could not relate nor understand her, and I found myself like rolling my eyes whenever she breathed. And her relationship in the novel with her boyfriend before the bodyguard swoops in was so unbelievable and like laughable. It just didn't make sense to me. And the only reason I ended up finishing this was because I do think that it had an interesting like tie to the medieval past. And I just wanted to know what the heck Jude Deveraux could possibly come up with. Explain how the bodyguard was going to stay in the present and what was going to... I needed just to know how she would possibly explain that. So I give this a 2 stars. Definitely wasn't the best romance I've read ever. But there's a worse one coming up. So this is the penultimate book of my worst books of 2023. And that is How It Unfolds by James S.A. Corey. Yes, this is a 30-page short story, but I'm including it, and it's definitely number 2. I have a very tumultuous relationship with James S.A. Corey. I don't like their writing at all. I don't like their representation of women in books. I don't like the underlying misogyny that I don't even think they realize is in it. How It Unfolds is a short story collection that was part of the Far Reaches series, which is a collection of short stories created by Amazon with a bunch of science fiction writers. And this was by far the worst one of the batch. And it was also the first one of the batch that I read, but I knew I just wanted to get through it. I knew I wasn't gonna like it. It's basically a story of an astronaut, or a group of astronauts really, that are given multiple lives, and they travel to different reaches of the universe, onto different planets, and have like multiple lives. And this was just trash. I'm asking, please, for Amazon or any short story collection collectors, editors, stop putting James S.A. Corey in your books. I don't want to read from him anymore. I need to ask myself also to stop reading James S.A. Corey because I know I'm not going to enjoy it at all. Like I said, every male character that they write is absolutely insufferable, and that was exactly prominent in this short story collection as well. I don't know how 38 pages could have pissed me off so much. This character had no motivation in the entire novel, despite being an astronaut, despite exploring the far reaches of the universe, besides pursuing a woman who is so far out of his league, and he's already rejected, fucked up millions of times because they've been put into different lives millions of times. Was it supposed to be romantic? I didn't see it. I didn't find it romantic. I found it annoying and creepy and scary. And so that's why it's one of the worst books of 2023. And then finally, a book that I think was not intended to be like masterful literature, but I read it anyways, and that's The Awakening by Caroline Peckham. Yes, Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. This is the first book in the Zodiac Academy series, and I read it because I was so interested in this book because people either hate it or really, really love it. Like the 8th book in the series, I think, was on the Goodreads Choice Awards this year in the romantasy category. Obviously, people like it, and I just wanted to know if I would be one of those people. I was not. I'm so sorry to all of my friends that I made read this book for our romance book club that we had at the beginning of the year. I will leave a link down below to the live show because we did it on my channel. I don't think any of us really enjoyed it, but basically the Zodiac Academy is about these twin girls who are Geminis, and they enter this like super superhero-y academy, and they're put into like different elemental groups like Hogwarts in a way. And basically they find out that they're also super special and possibly the queens of this world, and the heirs who run the different sects of elements don't like them. And that's very, very clear throughout the entire book. There's so much non-consensual, like consenty situations that are just so weird. The love interests are horrendous. Our main characters are horrendous. The world building is horrendous. This book is just not well written. I can understand if people enjoy it for like a popcorn, like guilty pleasure. But I need to question that. I need to wonder why you like it. The writing feels like it's written for a middle grade audience, yet the characters are adults. They act like adults, but the way that they behave and the intent behind like what they're saying and stuff does not feel very like adult. Listen, this series has found its audience. I don't get it. If you like the series, let me know down below. You can love any other book on this list and you don't have to defend yourself to me. I get it. But this one, I need to know why. I also don't think I enjoy bully romances, and that's the main thing with this one. It was just a trope I didn't like. I read it for fun. It ended up being my worst book of the year, but I can't say that this is the one I had the worst time with. So that's it. Those are my worst books of 2023. Not a crazy list. I didn't have a lot of terrible reads, but these were like the creme de la creme of the worst. If you've read any of these books, please let me know down below if you agree with me or not, especially with Zodiac Academy. And let me know down below what your worst book of 2023 is. I would love to know. And that's it. That's all. If you would like to follow my reading journey for 2024, I do leave a link down below to my Goodreads, Twitter, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, if you still like me, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It does wonders for my channel. It makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye!